Good day to everybody, and welcome to Miami's Cop Talk, a new show talking about law enforcement and the community of public safety. We want to give you an insider's view into the life and the training and what police work is in South Florida. You know, this is a team effort. My name is Robert Asencio. I'm a retired police captain, also a former state legislator. I'm here with my co-host, Raul Correa. I'll let him introduce himself in a minute. But today we want to deal with crisis intervention and the training that officers receive. We have a special guest today. Her name is Habsi Kaba. A little more about her because I can never do her justice. What do you say, Raul?
Yeah, it's actually, I'm looking forward to today's show. I mean, today's International Women's Day, and we have an amazing woman that's going to come on the show and speak to us. So looking forward to it.
Definitely a dynamic woman, a person who I've known for many years, a person who was instrumental, probably one of the best trainings that I've ever gone to, CIT training, critical incident teams, right? And it gave me a perspective of what a person who is dealing with mental health, how to deal with them, better deal with them on the street. I believe Habsi, if I'm not mistaken, has trained over 15,000 people since she's been doing this program. There are over 7,000 officers in Miami-Dade County who have already gone through the course. But without further ado, let's give you a little insight, a preview of what Habsi is all about and what she brings to the table. Tommy, our producer, can you run the tape, please, for our audience to see?
CIT is first and foremost officer safety. So what do you think emotions can do to you when you're out there on the street talking to someone? It can get you hurt.
It's really no fault of law enforcement that they didn't have the tools, the resources, or the knowledge to divert to treatment. Someone's loitering and they're not responding to the officer's directions. You are non-compliant, you are uncooperative, and I'm arresting you. You know, let's go, buddy. You're going to jail.
Can I have a volunteer come up? Thank you. Thank you. So happy that you're here. Will you join me in singing the national anthem?
Where?
We're right here. Okay, no, please, take a step back. Take a step back. Okay, what made you take a step back?
Well, what CIT teaches the officer is to see more than just, the obvious potential crime.
If I just asked you to take a step back, it did not compromise your officer safety, and you were able to just take a step back.
You gotta compromise sometimes with people, man.
Exactly.
You can escalate sometimes.
Exactly. Beautiful.
The first day I was here, I learned more in those 8 hours than I did in 9 years with the highway patrol. Not taking anything away from the patrol is great. It's just that us as law enforcement officers, we're made to wear so many hats, and now in today's society, they also want us to wear a white lab coat. To try to diagnose people, we can't do. We're not medical professionals, but here it teaches us a little bit more to recognize some of these things that people are going through.
The whole purpose of CIT is let's decriminalize the mentally ill. Let's properly assess. Let's get the person to the right place and divert them to treatment when it's appropriate.
Great. So now we're back on the air for you. Gives you a little idea of what Habsi's about. Raul, why don't we say we bring her on and why don't you start it out by asking her some really key questions here, the W's.
Absolutely. I'm Raul, and I'm looking forward to introducing Habsi Kaba. I love that name. And we have a thing here. We do 3 W's, the who, the war story, and the wonder. So we're going to start with the first W, which is who. Who are you, Habsi? Where did you get that amazing name? And tell us a little bit about you and how did you get to where you're at today?
Great. Thank you so much, Raul and Robert, for having me today. It's so great to be reunited after so many years. Both of you are CIT trained, and that's, by the way, it's crisis intervention team training. Yes, a 40-hour training, but it's so much more, and I will get to that. But so my background, I'm a marriage and family therapist, and I've been in the field for over 25 years. I had a great experience starting my career for the first 11 years, where I worked at a psychosocial rehabilitation center. So every day, 5 to 6 days a week, for 11 years, I spent my days with individuals living with schizophrenia, bipolar, major depression, day in, day out, on their good days and their bad days. That was one of two of my greatest platforms to help me be where I am today. After 11 years of working directly in the field of mental health, I was offered the opportunity to interview for a position with the Criminal Mental Health Project of the 11th Judicial Circuit Court, with the wonderful and well-known Judge Steve Leifman, who is a pioneer and a visionary. I mean, everyone, knows him. And so I really didn't even understand the concept and where we were going with the Criminal Mental Health Project. And so really, I'm going to tell you all about that and how it evolved into what it is today after 20 years. I've been working with law enforcement for 17 years, going on 18 years. And I'll tell you, that is the second, in no order, just amazing, inspiring, challenging, loving, just intimidating platform of working with law enforcement. And I say intimidating because truly I had no idea, just like the average person in society. We live our lives, we celebrate, we go to school, we work, we do our thing, and we are so not aware that every minute law enforcement has a watchful eye, is taking care of us, keeping us safe in the community. I had no opinion of law enforcement. I was a good kid growing up. I never had any, encounters with the law. So I just lived my life pretty, ignorantly of all the emergency services that we have in Miami-Dade County and throughout the nation. And so when I began to work in this field and really working with law enforcement, I was a pioneer, mental health merging with law enforcement. And I was, one of those pioneers almost 2 decades ago to begin to bridge, the gap. And
Can I jump in here for a second, Hopsy? Because I apologize, but you just hit something that is really, really important to the audience and current topics that are really, really highly debated. Mental health, you just mentioned you were a pioneer in this arena. Are we talking about like not just law enforcement as a whole, but bringing it closer to home, Miami-Dade County, right? So you help bring this training forward for cops to better deal with people who are going into, crisis intervention. But can you tell us a little bit about like the stories that officers have shared as to why this program is not just pioneering, but it's so important and has been so defining for law enforcement in this county? Can you go there, please?
Yes. Thank you, Robert. You lived it, right? No one better to really explain the transformation that occurs in understanding attitudes and beliefs when you sit through, a whole week of education where you are exposed to a whole other world. And it works both ways. So mental health, our broken, fractured system fell on the shoulders of law enforcement. And so, by default. And so, society basically said, well, we can't handle it, so it's yours, law enforcement, right? But as the years went by, we began to see concerns, right? And then began really, pointing fingers. You're not doing it right, right? You're not doing it right. And I think that is so just, that's where I realized we need to educate society as well, because we gave it to law enforcement by default, but we did a disservice because we didn't provide them with the tools and the education, the resources, the barriers, how to gap to gap those, those barriers. And so when the officer comes to class, my first experience walking into a classroom of 30 officers, and they didn't know me, I didn't know them. And I thought I was just coming to teach them something and then go out and do it. Thank you for your service. Well, I had quite an awakening, because it's really the officers that said to me, you want to learn about us? You want to help us? Do you even know our needs?
Can you share the stories of something that an officer's told you?
Yes.
How important or how defining, how transformative your training has been in real life situations?
Yeah. So, for example, we bring in people with lived experiences. Those are individuals with mental illness who have lived experiences in recovery, and they tell their story. So, law enforcement, responds when there's crisis, when there's, a potential threat. And so, law enforcement isn't responding when people are doing well. So, officers had really never really seen and been exposed to recovery and people who do well. And it began to really, clarify and talk, remove those myths and talk more about facts. And it began to humanize people with mental illnesses. And at the same time, it began to humanize the badge as they began to have these interactions. And so I would have officers. I had one officer, at the end of the week, he was very kind, very wonderful officer from Coral Gables, and said to me, he gave me a card and he said, thank you, because I came here to learn about others. And in the end, I learned more about myself. Right? Wow. That we are more alike than we are different.
Well, Habsi, I'm only interrupting you once. Robert interrupted you twice, and I want to point out, because I've learned in your class, I'll say one of the things that you bring to the table in your training is thinking outside the box. Officers, police officers, if you notice, they all wear the badge on the same side, and it's the cookie cutter approach. So a lot of what we do, a lot of our policies in many agencies are the same, the use of force and whatnot. And you bring that new perspective, especially when it comes to mental health. Mental health is not something that you can see right off the bat when you look at someone. It's not a physical ailment that you can see missing a limb or whatnot. And you brought a new perspective in a lot of your trainings to our officers. And I want to thank you publicly for that.
Yes.
Thank you so much. You've really been one of my greatest teachers. And it should be the same philosophy with anyone and everyone. Instead of being so quick to point out what we're not doing right, how about taking a step back? Spend time with mental health people, spend time with police officers, do a ride along. My first ride along was eye-opening and exciting, and it made me realize that, okay, that we're putting too much on law enforcement, all on their own. And that's why it's so important that CIT is not only about training, it's about bringing criminal justice partners, law enforcement, mental health, families, advocates together at one table, a platform where we can really identify those mutual concerns. Let's get out of our silos. Let's start working and streamlining communication and working towards a more responsive, safer, effective system. Law enforcement has been doing an outstanding job with diverting individuals, assessing individuals. Training really helped them. They tell me every day, this training helped me to save a life, to save my own life. I realized when I look back what I could have done differently. And so, if we take 10 years of what we've been doing, and really since 2010 to 2020, yes, out of two police departments, our largest, Miami-Dade PD and Miami PD, if you bring them together in 10 years, they've responded to 105,000 CIT calls, mental health calls. Wow. And out of those 105,000, there were only 198 arrests.
That's amazing.
Yes.
I want to use that as a segue, because I know in one of your trainings, going way back, the information was given that to no fault of corrections. It's just the resources weren't there. What do we do with the mentally ill that are confronted by law enforcement? And we
Right.
tend to put them in jail.
Right.
And you brought a new perspective to that, and I think that's one of the reasons why those arrests are down. And can you give us more information on basically how is it that officers, when they respond to a call, what are the indicators and what are things that you partake into the officer so they can maybe the general public, because mental health is something that is it affects us all, and I think that any information, any tips, any golden nuggets that you can give to the general public would be greatly appreciated.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great question. And, we need to be better at communication across the board, starting with awareness, helping our community become more aware of what mental illness looks like, of what you can do when someone appears to be not doing well, in crisis, who you can call. We need to start there. We need to start at home. We need to go, and we are, like the National Alliance on Mental Illness have programs within the schools. We have mental health first aid that is, for any and all in colleges as well, because that's when mental illness usually is, diagnosed, between 16 and the ages of 25. And anywhere where we have a change in our lives, if we're not able to adjust, have coping skills, and have the support out there, then we will be in crisis. And so we can, reduce the amounts of crisis, if we can provide individuals with education, with resources, and access to these resources. For example, if you ask a family, if your loved one is in crisis, what do? The majority are going to say dial 911.
Yeah.
How about mobile response team? The
Correct.
mobile response team is a 24/7 resource. It's a licensed clinician through one of our community mental health centers, Banyan Health Systems. You can call 305-774-3616. 305-774-3616. They are 24/7, no charge. They will come to you, to your home, to school, wherever you are, and they will assess that person. If they meet criteria for the Baker Act, then they will be Baker Acted and transported by police, because that is statute, or ambulance. It depends on the situation. And if they don't meet that criteria, then they provide resources. You can dial 211 and ask for resources on assessment, on doctors, on programs. You can go to NAMI.org. I mean, there are so many things, prevention, that we can do before it gets to an emergency. But if it does get to that point, then thank goodness for law enforcement. And that's why, they need training. And you see more and more, because we teach them how to navigate through the system of care. But they're not social workers, nor should they be. And that's why you see so many now, with the talk of reform, with these crisis models where they have, co-responder models. Truly, they talk about defunding police, and I wish I could just have a microphone, to the nation, a PA system, and let everyone know. You need to stop. You need to learn about police. If you really understood police services and all of their lack of resources and challenges, we would provide them with greater funding to be able to assist them. And so people ask me, what do you think about the co-responder model? Well, I think that there is a place for mental health professionals, within our community to respond to crisis. But we absolutely need police for safety and, and criminal reasons as well.
Habsi, I hate to cut you off, but we're down to the last 2 minutes.
Yes.
But I wanted to get a couple points across.
Yes.
If they need to get a hold of you for advice or guidance, where can the audience call you?
Right. So I want to give the right. Law enforcement knows how to get a hold of me. I am not a service provider. I'm not 211, but or 911, but we do have 211. Call 211. Ask for more information on how to guide, navigate through the system. If you want to learn more about our criminal mental health project through the 11th Judicial Circuit, go to our website, 11th Judicial Circuit of Florida, and there you can find some more information about us, and I'm happy to help. I want to give a shout out to, before I go, to all our women, our sisters on International Women's Day, but also to our former Chief Kalina. Happy retirement to you, sir. You have been a wonderful example of leadership and collaboration. You were one of the first departments to come on board with CIT, and we continue to carry on. Thank you. God bless, and happy retirement. And I want to thank you, Robert and Raul, for giving me this time, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Well, two closing thoughts. One, you, through your training, demonstrated to me what a person who is going through a psychological break and a break from reality, a person that may be hearing stories or voices, you taught me how to deal with them. And I can't say it enough, because not only did you probably save a person's life that I came up with or came call up to deal with, but you also taught me that they were to decriminalize mental health. And I can't thank you enough for that, because not only was able to get into that frame of mind, but the officers that work with me were equally serving the community in a better way. Well, so I can't thank you enough, Raul. Why don't you close it out?
Well, Habsi, and I want to thank you, because your training helped me to deal with Robert a lot better. So, that was, I really needed that.
You invited to the podcast. So
yeah.
But
we're going to continue our conversation with Habsi on our podcast. And Habsi, I'm going to use your information as a segue. We put 211 on our website in our links and resources.
Great.
If you go to our website, miamicop.com, it is on our, what's that?
Miami Cop.
Miami Cop Talk. What did I say?
Miami Cop.
Talk.com. Yeah. This therapy session has got me going. So, MiamiCopTalk.com, and we have a link to resources on there, and 211 is on there. I appreciate Habsi coming on, and again, congratulations for the great work you do.
Thank you, and thank you to both for your care, your compassion, and your humanitarian efforts.
Well, let's continue the conversation, please.
Yes, please. Thank you. Love to all my officers. Bye.
Well, that completes this segment of the show. Next segment, we have the honorable loss to law enforcement. Hopefully, he will stay on and work in the law enforcement community as a private citizen, but it is the recently retired chief of the City of Miami Police Department, Jorge Colina, a man who I admire, a man who basically does not deserve much of a recognition. So that's on the next show. To the producers, to our sponsors, Miami Tactical, right?
Miami Tactical.
What's that?
That's my company.
That's your company.
Yeah, well, thank you. MiamiTactical.com. That's my company. Yeah, and you know what? Since we're putting people's names out there, I want to put Mainline Marlins. Tommy, the man, our producer, every day from 8:45 to 9 in the morning. He's got a 15-minute show. It's phenomenal. If you know anything about baseball, you know that this guy knows what he's talking about. On Wednesdays, it's from 3 in the afternoon to 3:30. Mainline Marlins.
He also has shows with the players, right?
He does, but that's not important. The important part of the show in Mainline Marlins is not the players. Those guys are getting paid big bucks. Is Tommy. He's the real show.
Boy.
Yeah.
Tommy, you got that?
Tell the Marlins out there I said that.
That's a heck of a shout out.
Yeah, man.
Also, we want to thank another sponsor of our show, another company that we're involved with is New Era Alliances, a niche consulting company that I recently formed, but it is also helping sponsor the show. So with that, we want to thank the Millers, Grant and Michael Miller, team at the community newspapers. Tommy, always behind the scene, producing our shows. You're the best. Let's keep it going. And for that, thank you very much. And we'll see you on the next show.